booster ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Episode 147. UFC Fight Night Moncton is finally upon us. We finally have had a fight week under us. We got some research to do. We're here to break down a 13 card bout. Before that, how have you been, Lesbo, since we last met?
Doing all right. It's a fight night finally.
Finally, we got a little bit of money to make over the weekend. Before we get into the card, because that's what everyone's here for, how do you feel the card's going to go over the weekend?
Can I tell you what I'm thinking of? Have you heard about the one trade?
Of Eddie Alvarez, what we talked about previously on our shows?
Bigger news. It's bigger news. It's huge news.
Is it Ben Askren 98% sure that he's going to come back to the UFC?
Is it the trade for Ben Askren and... You haven't heard about it?
I have not heard about it.
Oh, then this
I've
is
been in a
hot
hole.
Off the presses.
Wow, late breaking.
Apparently, the UFC is in talks to trade Ben Askren for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Oh, I don't like that. I love DJ. Hey, DJ.
I do too, but if the UFC's getting rid of the 125...
Interesting. Eddie Alvarez did talk on Ariel's show about how this deal should restructure every single free agent from this point on. They should take a look at Eddie Alvarez's deal because he also received company points. He's a partner. He's not just a fighter in ONE FC.
Yeah, company points, and like it's an 8-figure deal that he keeps saying.
Yep.
And so for making a few $100,000 a fight, even on good fights, that it's just getting paid. Yeah, you might make more for sponsorship, but either way you're going to make for sponsorship. That has nothing to do with the UFC.
Totally.
The fact that the UFC is not paying their fighters and they can stand to go to these other fight leagues, and potentially I go back to what I've been saying. The UFC is slowly diluting their product too much, and we're going to see something else move in to its spot.
Do you think one could be that company? Supposedly they're making way bigger plays. Eddie Alvarez also speculating, saying that, hey, watch out because bigger things are coming.
I believe that they potentially could make more money. They stand to make more money over there because the Asian audience is bigger, and the Asian audience bigger population-wise and smaller as people. So having
the 125
Demetrius
is
makes
actually
sense.
a great call. And they got a bunch of those crazy rich Asians over there as well.
And I mean, it's, not just China and all of Japan and all of India. It's a huge market. The United States is not what it used to be.
Wow.
I don't think it's leading the way necessarily as far as what we have an idea of what Hollywood's selling. I think Bollywood might be bigger, or whatever China, what is called, wherever they're making their movies out
I
of.
think it's YouTube now, and it's like Section 7 or Section 8 company that's officially taken over.
Have you watched Crazy Rich Asians?
I can't say I have, but I was trying to plug it earlier.
I know when you said it. We definitely want to watch it.
Oh, you
we
as well.
started it, and yeah, I don't want to say it was a bad feed at the movie theater.
So, with all that one talk, Ben Askren...
We'll wait until it comes to one of our...
Definitely, once we have a little bit more time to talk about it. Though, real quick, with Ben Askren, if he does come to the UFC, for me, it's just a little too late. To me, he's out of his prime. He's got a funk style, and that's been his entire career, even in wrestling. But I just feel like, what is he, 37, 38, 39 years old-ish now? And
Tony Ferguson's 37.
it's a good point.
GSP, 36.
I would love to see Ben Askren in the UFC just for all of wrestling.
He has taken such minimal damage.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very, very true. He has a very unique style in game, and it's Habib-esque without as much ground and pound, but he just enters a lot more differently with his shots.
And he's been one of the guys that is, he has been off the sparring train for a really long time.
Yep.
I don't think he says he sparred for like 10 years or something. So, and I could be making that up, but I feel like he said that on Joe Rogan when he was on that interview with Joe Rogan. Anyways, I thought it was big news.
I thought that was Eddie Alvarez maybe saying that as well. I thought I heard him talking about the lack of... Me, I could be wrong on that.
I don't know. I didn't watch the Eddie Alvarez one. Was he on Ariel?
He was on... What is
But
it?
I'm so happy for Eddie Alvarez. He deserves it. Any guy that gets to that point in his career that's carried all the belts and shit, yeah, 8-figure deal. These fighters deserve NFL money, in my opinion.
Totally.
And whether you want to argue whether the NFL players should make that much, yes, they're freaking getting traumatic brain injury, and the owners of these teams and the networks are getting billions of dollars off their back. I feel like, yes, they should make all the money they can. The UFC, same boat. They're making tons of money off these fighters, and the fighters are getting like
peanuts.
And I don't think that's, they're the ones that have the head injuries. Anyways,
so
Montauk.
That's
an island.
We have UFC Fight Night 138, 13 card bout coming out of New Brunswick, Montauk, Canada.
It's not Montauk though.
Oh, it's
Shit, I messed this up for the whole rest.
Either way, New Brunswick, we in Canada, we love you, Canada. All that weed, you ain't gonna remember what we said anyways. We know. You got some good laws.
They won't be mad. Oh, that's
Yeah.
Irish. Sorry.
Oops, uboot, aboot. That's about as much Canadian as I know. So, before we get off the rails too
Every
much...
time we have a Canadian card, I can already picture what it's going to be. Like, I already know the fighters that are going to be on it.
I always do. Yes, I agree with that. I am surprised we didn't have the Canadian Gangster Schmako showing. He's got to be in the arena.
He's who I was thinking about, but I think they're probably saving him for UFC 231 with Shevchenko versus Joanna.
Ooh.
Because there's that other Canadian card coming up.
That is true. They have another one right down the barrel. But before that, we're going to start from the bottom to the top with Stevie Ray versus Jason Ayari. This is... Both fighters have fought in the UFC. Ayari has one fight. He's 16-4. Being 26 years old, he's lost his debut in the UFC against Darren Till via decision a year, 4 months ago. So at 26 years old, against Darren Till, we could see a big step up in Ayari. But I do remember he was somewhat short notice, and you can see he was very outsized against Darren Till. Also, the striking caliber wasn't there. Ayari tends to like to get fights to the ground and more roll into his positions and submissions. Has okay power, but against Stevie Ray, he's a guy who's had definitely quite a few fights in the UFC now. At 21-8, he's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, losing to people like Paul Felder via TKO, and then a decision split versus Cajun Johnson via 7 months ago. Stevie Ray is gas tank. It doesn't necessarily fade, but he really does plateau in his cardio into the third round. Takedowns aren't really there for him much. He likes to stand up and box a lot. Doesn't throw any kicks that really matter. Likes to stay on the outside, and it's just kind of set in his ways at 28. I haven't seen any big growth, but these guys both being so young, it's one fight and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this guy looks like a killer. You know how we do here at LaTB. We stay away from the first fight of the night, and there's a big reason for that. And I see this being Stevie Ray's decision. Ayari could be a live dog. There's going to be other spots to make money. I'm going to definitely steer clear of this one. Who do you have in this bout?
In my opinion, the highest caliber fight that either of them has had is Darren Till at 170. And I got to go with Ayari. At 150, he has more power. And I think Stevie Ray, for some reason, even though he's a young guy, I think he has a great fight style. He's gone against hard fights. We got to see him against, for some reason, the best Cajun Johnson that we've seen. And then Paul Felder had his, fight of his life where everyone was like, Paul Felder is on a mad tear. It's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ayari is just a little bit better everywhere. I have him decision. And I agree with you. I'm going to stay away from it.
A good call, by the way. Ayari is moving down from 170 pounds to fight at 155 pounds, but he's been away for a year, 4 months. Is it one of those things where he was like, oh, Darren Till's UFC caliber, once he started training like a pro fighter, he's like, wow, I can't keep 170 pounds on, moving down a weight class? Just a thought. So,
or maybe he took the Till fight on short notice to begin with, and he
totally.
was so
debuted there at that weight, 170 pounds.
Yeah, and it just taking Darren Till power, he's going to be safe in that against Stevie Ray.
So Stevie Ray on DraftKings is 8,300 against 7,900 again for Ayari. Are you going to end up putting either of those guys or in any of your cards?
No.
I agree. They're two in the middle.
I'm going to stay away.
Definitely stay away. Then we move up to the heavyweights, 265.
It's desperation for filler to keep my cards fresh or something, but other than that, stay away.
We're going to move on to the 265ers, heavyweights. Big boys are coming in, and we have the Sign. What's his nickname? Boulard, the Sai, against Marcelo Gome. Boulard, you know he comes in with those wrestling credentials. 7-1, losing to Seaweed. Lesbo cashing big on a huge underdog. I try to convince her as much as I try to tell her Greg Maynard was a good call. I said Boulard was a good call. And guess what? Both of them shat the bed for me. Boulard hurt a little bit more since he was like a 300 favorite. But that he was winning that striking, and on the ground, Seaweed had his only chance. And Boulard took him there. Low fight IQ. Really proved a lot of inconsistency for me, and really has me stepping back from Boulard. His striking looks okay and his wrestling's good, but his submission defense was so incredibly weak. Not to say Seaweed isn't good, but I remember watching it and being like, hey, that guy's going to get an omoplata if he doesn't move. And Boulard just sat there, which just is such low ground fight IQ. When you're a wrestler, you need to have good ground. You need to know what's going on the ground. Marcelo Gome, though, you don't got to worry about that because he is more of a kickboxing striker. At 26 years old, Gome is 6-1, losing his fight against Timothy Johnson in a decision, another wrestler, and he ended up getting a submission win over Colombo, but Colombo is no longer in the UFC. That's also one of the worst fighters we've ever had in the UFC, so you can't put too much stock into that. You don't hear these heavyweights are rough. They get some easier fights here and there. But that Timothy Johnson, that's the blueprint to beat Gome. And Boulard can mimic that, use a lot of cage ground and pound. That submission that came from Gome was after he hurt Colombo and then ended up getting a rear naked or a guillotine choke on it. But it was the striking that really set it up. And I think Boulard has as good a striking as Gome. But on the ground, it's hope the submissions aren't there from Gome so that I don't have to worry. So I got decision Boulard. I'm going to be hesitant. Probably not going to play heavy on this because he burned me once. Shame on me. Burned me twice.
Oh, I know. It's weird because the highest caliber beating Henrique or Timothy Johnson. Timothy Johnson's probably the highest caliber of fight that either guy's gone against.
Totally.
And the body of Gome changed so much from his first fight to his second. Like, it looks like it's coming together that I imagine his cardio to be on the up. Boulard, he ain't changing.
Yeah.
That's how his body's going to be. That's how his cardio is going to be. In my opinion, this is a battle of the cardio. I think it's going to be such a boring fight.
Totally.
We are in Canada. I think Gome is going to win the decision, but it's going to be close enough that Boulard is going to take it in his home country, and I'm going to stay far, far away from this fight. Boulard decision.
I do believe Boulard wrestled for Canada as well. So.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, big, hairy guy.
With the betting lines, we have Boulard at minus 180 against plus 150, and on DraftKings, and that's for Boulard being the favorite, on DraftKings 8,800 against 7,400 for Gome. I can't put Boulard on many cards for 8,800. He has to get a finish, and as you're saying, I feel like this could be a little bit more boring decision type of a fight.
It is going to be two heavy guys leaning on each other by The second round, 2 minutes and 20 seconds in, it's just going to be leaning.
I totally think you might have a point there. So, we go to a dirty double debut. We haven't had one of these in a bit skis.
Golem could be a sneaky underdog on that.
Golem could be a sneaky underdog, but I'm going to stay away from that
I don't see him
fight.
getting the finish in that fight. Rear naked choke. Yeah, I don't see him getting the...
I don't see that either.
Yeah, because everyone he knocked out was some people with zero experience.
Exactly. So, back to the dreaded double debut. We have Don Made versus Ted Edwards. Both of these young men are in their early 20s, 27, 28 for Edwards. 7-3 and 1 for Don. Tedwards, okay. I can say that. Ted Edwards. Don Made, or Magic Man, against T himself. Does he pronounce it T now that I see that?
T. Maybe he is T Edwards, and that's why his nickname's T.
That's what I was just thinking as well.
It's T, everyone.
And he has a fight out of the Contender Series, being 6-1. He got a first round knockout, or 30-second knockout, over Austin Tweedy. But we have a 4-fight winning streak for the EFC fighter, beating people like Dave Mazzani, rear naked choke, people you have never heard of. And
thank God. Thank God.
The South African is definitely coming in against a Arizona State D1 college wrestler in T. T has blown a lot of people out of the water, has a heavy right hand, built like a shit brick house, and throws with tons of power. We haven't seen his cardio much because he's able to get people out of there in the first and second round. This is heavily cited his...
Are you telling me he has crazy good hands and we haven't even had to see him back up on his D1?
I would not say that, because I would say he has crazy fast hands with power. But he does that thing that a lot of guys with power have, where he puts his hands at his hips in the first round. It's going to work against these lower guys once you start to get in that top 10. Sir, put your hands up because you won't get kicked in the face. T also likes to throw a right head kick that actually has a ton of power on it, and he sets it up well. With Don Magic Man himself, is it Madage? Don Madage himself is more of a kickboxer, has some pro kickboxing in there as well, and uses a lot of good clinch positions to sweep. He does a lot of that Dutch sweeping on the ground. He's serviceable with his ground and pound, has a couple submissions. But again, the lower caliber of guys that he was fighting, they were allowing him to spin back around and get to the back. And guess what a D1 wrestler is not going to let you do? Spin around and get to his back. It's just not going to happen at all. Madage on the ground has very slow, sloppy takedowns. So I don't see this going to the ground at all. If it gets into the later rounds, I could see T starting to have a little bit of trouble, but Madage also keeps his head straight up. He's a little bit taller, and he has a bit of that Muay Thai where he'll grab for your head, but his head will stay on the swivel, so that right hand is going to come over that clinch. And I see this being stopped in the first round, probably around the 4-minute mark, once T really starts to feel confident in there. Poor Madage is going to come in taking a loss, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. Who do you have in this fight?
I'm going with T as well, and I actually think this is a gimme fight. I think the UFC is just kind of handing him an opener so he can walk in hot. This is a perfect person, I think. This is
totally. It is a setup fight. Totally is.
A little bit, and I also... This is a wrong division to do it in. I think this division's thick enough. They need to spend time setting up different setup fights.
Totally.
But, yeah, Edwards KO, round 1.
94,000 on DraftKings.
Or I could see ground and pound round 2 finish.
I could see it early round 2 as well. 94,000 for T Edwards against 6,800 for Don Magic Madman Mattis. Also, the huge favorite on the betting lines is T. How much are you going to put for 9-4 debut fighter?
No, can't do it on too many things. Whatever I can afford, though.
I still think, though, I'm going to try to play him on about 70-80%.
Throw.
I think he's going to eat a couple shots and be like, okay, I can eat that. Here's a right hand that's going to lay you right down. So,
But yeah, night.
yeah, night. You're going to get a
Night,
little
night.
quick rest in there. Then we move on to the 135-pounders with Sarah Moras versus Talita Bernardo. Bernardo coming in with a 4-3 record on a 2-fight losing streak in the UFC. 31 years old, coming out of Brazil, against Moras's 5-3 record. She's Canadian's own. She's coming off of a loss to Lucy Pudilova 8 months ago, but has a win over Jessica Andrade 3 months ago in the UFC.
No, she lost to her.
Oh, she lost. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong one.
What in the... What?
She beat Ashley Evans-Smith via armbar. But Moras in there has been in there for a bit. She's 30 years old, and for the ladies, has more fights than most of them in there. Bernardo is someone who came in because she lost to Irene Aldana and Marion Renault via TKO ground and pound. She likes to strike. Bernardo likes to keep it striking, uses a lot of that Muay Thai, has okay power, but is so heavily outclassed on the ground that one takedown and women can capitalize immediately, and that's been happening to her. Her cardio has also been shit weak in the second round. She comes out already breathing hard. She throws a lot of power, but it doesn't land well. Against Sarah Moras, I see this takedown coming, her getting into the ground, wanting to get it there, and once it's there, I just see Bernardo against most women in this division failing. I think this is actually 3 and done for Bernardo. I
Not
got
in this
Moras.
division.
That's a good freaking point. She's probably got 3 more fights left, huh?
Yeah.
That's a really good point. But I'm going to go with Moras. Actually, submission. I had a decision earlier on in the week. I think she gets it done in the second round. Wears down Barella a little bit in that first round. Because Moras is good striker, serviceable. She ain't going to knock you out anytime soon. But those strikes are going to set up those takedowns. Who do you have in this fight?
I agree. I have Moras submission round 2 as well. I think for all the same reasons. If friggin' Marion Renault just ate right through Bernardo. I just don't see too much of the game changing from there. At least going to decision with Pudilova. Okay. That's something to me. Going into decision with Aldana. Ugh, this fight is ugly, ugly fight. Mariah submission round 2. I don't know how much I'm going to put it anywhere.
For 8,700 against 7,500 for Bernardo. How much are you going to put Moras on cards?
Not too many.
We see a finish, though.
I know, but I don't trust it.
I agree. I don't trust it. I don't feel good about that one. I'm going to probably play it on 50% of my cards. But I'm going to stay on Moras, and I'm not going to put Bernardo anywhere.
I'll probably have it Moras on 1 or 2 cards.
Okay.
Because I don't trust that fight at all. I think it could be a boring decision and like 42 points apiece or 37 points apiece or something.
Totally. Moving on to the 145 pounds, we have Calvin Kattar versus debuting Chris Fishgold. Fishgold is a 17-1 fighter. Cage Warriors former champion. Good all-around fighter. I did watch a good amount of tape on this young man, and a lot of people have been waiting for him to come into the UFC. He's getting, though, a tough pick against Calvin Kattar, 18-3. He's the big favorite in here because he just has such higher level competition. He just got his first loss in the UFC against Hento Carnero via decision 6 months ago, but prior to that had a 3 or 4 fight winning streak, beating the people like Shane Burgos, who was all sorts of skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Exactly. Skyrocketed up there, and he finished them in the second round. Calvin Kattar has a lot.
I would even say Feely. Andre Feely was a surprise.
Yeah, that he came out and beat him the way he did. Totally. Kattar is definitely overachieved, but one of the big things that I had heard of prior to his Moicano fight is that he's owning a gym, he's running his own fight organization and trying to fight, and that's why I faded him a little bit more. It is a lot, and I've seen that he has backed off of that since his loss. He's buckled down and got back into it, and if we see a good Calvin Kattar in there, that's a good wrestler with good strikes and a good ground game. Just hard out for anyone in there, and Fishgold is UFC caliber competition. He does have really good strikes to the body and head, chains them together in 3 and 4 strike combinations, but he'll move from the head to a body shot, back to the head, and then finish it with a double leg takedown. The doubles and singles he shoots aren't that good, but the fact that he uses MMA all around and uses his strikes to set it up as all one movement, it works very well against his European competitors. Against Calvin Kattar, who is a wrestler at his base, there's been better wrestlers who haven't been able to get him down. I did like Chris Fishgold's cardio as well. He was able to put those combinations together in the third and fourth rounds and able to do well on the ground. I just think Kattar is a little two step above, and Fishgold just needed anybody to fight him to get into the UFC, and Kattar was like, okay, whatever, I'll fight him, and it's because a lot of other guys didn't want to come in here and lose against Fishgold because he is going to be a good prospect. I like where he's coming from. I'm going to have Kattar decision, but this is going to be a fun one. I think this could be sneakily fight of the night because Fishgold's got a good amount of pressure, and he comes forward.
What about Fishgold coming down from 155?
He was thick at 55. Like, he's a solid, he's like a Rick Story, where he's thick and not shredded, but...
Could this might be trouble?
We got to watch the weigh-ins for this. That's a good call. We got to see how he feels, and if he is overweight, what do we stay with, Kattar or not?
Oof, that's dangerous. Right now, I have Kattar decision as well, but like something about the bigger guy, I usually tend to... which doesn't work all the time for me.
I would agree, and Fishgold tends to hurt people, but if Shane Burgos, who I think has more power than Fishgold, couldn't get Kattar out of there, I think Kattar's chin's going to hold up enough. And then once those takedowns don't come, I do see Fishgold being exploited a bit on his feet. Again, he's got a good MMA game. I like this fight. I really do think this is a fight of the night contender. Sneaky, sleeper fight.
Sneaky little fight. I have Kattar decision as well.
9,100 for Calvin Kattar. Minus 450 favorite against 7,100 for Fishgold. Do you see a play here? I could see a wager gauger here because of decision. I don't know if we necessarily see a finish.
I think so. I don't see a finish either way.
I like that. We'll see on that before the night's out. That's definitely a prominent one for the wager gauger of the night. Then we move to the 155-pounders in Nasrat Hapkaras.
OTW.
Versus Tibu Gowdy Hapkaras Baby Gassed. You know that nipple game comes strong. You know I had to mention something. You knew it. All you guys know. I love it.
Just waiting.
I love it. When you can use a nipple as a weapon, that's evolving. That's MMA evolving. So, Gowdy's been in the UFC for a long time. He's 12-4. All of his losses coming in the UFC. He has one win TKO over Andrew Holbrook, who moved up in weight after that loss. But last, coming off of a loss against Sage Northcutt via decision, Gowdy is serviceable, but doesn't really stick out anywhere. On the ground, serviceable. Striking is probably where he likes to keep it most, but he can get cut up on his feet. Hapkaras, 9-2. Came in short notice and lost to Marcin Held on like 2 weeks' notice, but came in and showed us what a full training camp will do for Baby Gassed. This dude, Daikesi was supposed to be a striker. Hapkaras 10-8'd him 2 rounds in there. I mean, Daikesi didn't have a chance in there after the first round. Hapkaras comes in. He's coming out of TriStar, I believe, as well. He's got that TriStar jab down on the ground. He's got good takedown defense, tons of power. You saw Daikesi, who has a lot of power himself, after he ate a couple shots, was like, ooh, I can't just run in on this guy. Gowdy isn't going to do that at all. And I just see this fight being Hapkaras moving forward, Gowdy trying to use those counter strikes. But I really like what I'm seeing all the way around from Hapkaras. I think this is somebody to keep an eye on. I have finished round number 1 for Nasrat. You know that nipple game's too strong to sway away from. Who are you going to have?
23 years old. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
He's the unsung hero. He needs to get to fight Sage Northcutt, in my opinion.
They're going to keep Sage out of that fight because they want him a couple more wins.
I know. So if Sage can beat you by a decision, Nasrat Hapkaras is going to murk you. I have KO round 2. Baby Gassed alum.
Baby Gassed gonna be on a bunch of my cards. I just don't see how this doesn't finish. But This is one of those crazier lines we ever seen because a lot of people see what we see here. In 9,700
Holy
for Nasrat
moly.
against 6,500.
Those are too inflated in my opinion.
That's too much. I'm going to probably put it on 60% of my cards if I can afford it. But
I'll put it on what I can
Yeah.
afford, DraftKings.
I agree. I'm going to have to end up having a couple other lower guys, but that's tough to get there. Gowdy for 6'5", not putting him anywhere. Don't even think about it.
Friggin' punching bag, that poor guy. They just put in there for all theirs. Every time they want they have Canadian guys
To show off.
Yeah.
Yep. They're like, oh, get Gowdy.
I'm moving to round one.
I got it round one as well.
One.
So for 9,000, that's over 100 points if he finishes. Because it's 100, then whatever strikes he landed.
He has to get for 9.7. He has to get over 130, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Over 9
Yeah.
is 100, in my opinion.
Okay, I
For
like that.
9,000, you have to have 100
Okay.
or more. And then once it gets to 9.1, whatever, it has to be 107 or 111 or 100. Once you get to 9.7, in my opinion, that's cyborg. You have to start laying cyborg numbers. You got to start laying Mighty Mouse Johnson numbers. You got to start laying Shevchenko numbers. You got to get 130s for 9.7. That's like when I open my wallet, I'm like, that's almost half of my wallet if I'm going to tip on that.
Yeah, true.
Anyway.
So, on to the 170 pounders, we have Nordine Taleb
This is a sleeper fight.
against Sean Strickland. I totally agree. This is also a contender for Fight of the Night.
This is sleeper cell.
This is actually...
Wait, don't take us off. Don't take us off.
This is actually the preliminary main event. And rightfully so. Nordine Taleb, 37 years old, 14-5. He has wins and losses in the UFC. Coming off of his... Who does he bodyguard for? He bodyguards for someone
Whitney
professionally.
Houston?
Oh! He didn't do a good job if he were to do it for her. But,
I was thinking of the movie The Bodyguard.
oh, that... Good call. Nordine Taleb, coming off of a loss.
Oh,
rear
did he
naked
bodyguard
choke.
for someone?
Yeah, he does bodyguard. He bodyguards
didn't know.
for someone in Canada, but I can't think of who.
GSP?
It's usually. It might be somebody else. It might be some like pro basketball player or something.
Tom Green?
There it is. Probably Tom Green's bodyguard. Nordine Taleb coming in with the leather jacket and the little mustache. 14-5, coming in off of a loss to Claudio Silva, who's 11-1.
Morissette?
Does she even need a bodyguard?
I don't know. That's ironic. All right, Nordine Taleb.
So he lost via submission. Is a striker, been on the Canada America show. We know what we get with Nordine Taleb. Good fundamental striking, good switches on the ground. He won't submit you really, but he has good stifling top ground where you're not going to be able to submit him off your back. And he has a good takedown, a good sprawl. It's hard to take down Nordine Taleb. With Sean Strickland, if you know I'm all about them baby gas nipples, you know I've been all about Propane Strickland for a very long time. Very underrated fighter, 19-3.
That's how his last fight ended.
Unfortunately for
It was
him,
horrible.
he got shut down by Zaleski. Ended up really screwing me over in a lot of my cards.
I didn't see it coming that way at
Neither
all.
did I. But Zaleski's a legit fighter as well. That was a tough fight for him. This should be much, much easier just because the power isn't really there with Taleb. Taleb kills you by 1,000 cuts. Has okay kicks as well. Throws up good dexterity, does Taleb for both legs. But I think Sean Tarzan Strickland uses a good takedown game. Good get you on the fence, pull you down. And once he's on top, likes to use that ground and pound off of his back. He ain't bad at it as well. Striking, he keeps his hands a little bit low. That's what that elbow caught him as well. It was just that hand being in a spot where it usually doesn't need to be, but that's because he's so confident in his strikes that that's not supposed to happen. It can. I don't see Taleb really taking over at any point in this fight. If anything, I can see it being fight of the night. I can also see him being a clinch fest where Strickland slowly starts to edge it out 10-8 rounds.
Taleb.
I think this is a split decision type fight, but I am going to go 2 rounds easily for Strickland. I think maybe Taleb takes over the first, but I think as the fight goes on, Strickland takes over. Got 29-28 decision for Sean Strickland. Who do you have in this fight?
I have like an 80% success rate with this pick with Sean Strickland, so I'm going to pick it again. Sean Strickland decision.
Nice.
I think Taleb and Strickland are both going to move forward in this division.
Totally.
Gosh, Taleb's getting old, and it just sucks. I just think it's one of those guys. We'll see him fight again. He's fought a lot of beasts that are climbing their way through using Nordine Taleb. And it's weird how close Sean Strickland and Nordine Taleb are in the rankings. This does really nothing for Sean Strickland as far as moving forward goes, but maybe that's by design so people can keep avoiding him.
I could see that.
Because he went to decision with Usman when Usman was tearing through everyone.
Totally.
I mean, so... And then people will be like, oh, Usman decisions. Like, that's what he does. But
It's still not easy. It ain't easy being cheesy.
it ain't easy. Sean Strickland decision.
Moving on to the main card, we have Court McGee against Alex Garcia at 170 pounds. Both of these guys, for me, are on the backside of their career. I know the 31-year-old and the 31-year-old Garcia against the 33-year-old McGee, they just have a lot of wear and tear. They show us what type of fighter they are, and I don't think either of them is making any changes. They've plateaued. Court McGee's a grinder. Alex Garcia is a powerhouse. Coming out of TriStar as well, Alex Garcia is 15-5. He is a Christmas tree, and they're winning one, losing one for a while. Last loss to Ryan LaFleur, getting a win over Smokleoff, losing though to Tim Means in a decision. So, Alex Garcia, hit and miss. He's one of those guys that is technically due for a win, but always looking to let you down in there. Against Court McGee's 18-7. He's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak. Court McGee, lost to Strickland in a decision 11 months ago. Lost in a decision to Ben Saunders and beat Dominique Steele in a decision. But Court McGee's one of those guys who's been to the other side and come back. Joe Rogan says it every time. Those guys, they died, man. You can't get them out of there. And that's definitely Court McGee's plan. He will take a beating and keep on coming. He's a wrestling grinder with a good shot, puts you up on the fence, brings your legs out from under you, and peppers you until you either quit or give up a submission in there. Alex Garcia, though, is one of these guys that can get ground out. In the third round, Alex Garcia gives up almost every third round he's ever in, and that's because his body mass, he's so muscular. He has trouble making weight. This is a guy you got to watch out for.
You need to give him a granola bar between round 2 and 3.
Yeah, 100%.
He has no more calories left.
At all. But again, that weight cut has always added up for him as well. At 170 pounds, he's just solid muscle, good takedown defense. Striking-wise, has a hard right, but he only throws one of those punches. Alex Garcia is one of those guys that'll throw a shitty left hook and then a hard right, and good strikers will be able to get around that. Court McGee, though, I don't think he is, because Court McGee's that guy who will just put his head down, keep walking forward until your back hits the fence, and then get you down. I don't like this, but I got Garcia submission round number 2, and I think this is set up via strikes. I think Court McGee uses the same game plan and eats one too many shots, gets hurt, and then Garcia circles around the back, gets a rear naked choke. I got round number 2. I should be more confident in that, but I'm not. I don't know why. I'm going to back off of it a bit, even though I see a finish here. It's just more of a fade on McGee, but I'm looking to fade Garcia in fights any other day here, too. So I'm going to go Garcia round number 2. It's a scary one. Who are you going with in this fight?
I actually, surprising, have Court McGee in this fight. I think he wins by decision purely based on the gas tank. If it's I think Alex Garcia throws hard, but Court McGee doesn't have a bad chin. Ben Saunders is underrated, and I know he has a glass jaw, but being able to fight off Ben Saunders' jiu-jitsu for a whole entire fight is insane. So I'm not worried about any of our Alex Garcia's ground game. And I just think as round 2 wears on into round 3, it becomes entirely Court McGee's ball game. He might be bloodied, he might be cut up, he might be bruised, but they're not going to get booed either, because this is what Canada, they're an educated audience most of the time. I got Court McGee by decision. That is an underdog.
Nice. That is a good sized underdog. Alex Garcia is 8,500 on DraftKings against 7,700 for
Alex
Court
Garcia,
McGee.
if you think of the way he fights too, he doesn't lay any punches. He doesn't throw any.
He throws one punch at a
It's
time, like
so
as I was saying.
ridiculous. It's just like, keep away.
Yep.
Keep away.
He gives up fights. I'm on that Christmas tree. I like how he's win one, lose one, Alex Garcia, so he's due for a win, right? Court McGee is on a 2-fight losing streak, though. He's never been in that spot, so he's got to get a win here. Are you going to end up playing Court McGee anywhere for 7,700?
I might have to play him to be able to afford some other people.
And for 8,500, I don't think Garcia you should be putting on a lot of spots.
No.
He has to get a finish for that, and I'm saying he probably gets a finish, but that's like a 40% on your cards. I'm not going to stack that anywhere. Then we move to the light heavyweights. If I said we had two shot fighters are on the backside of their career, these guys are already at the bottom of the backside of their careers. This is such a hard fight to watch. We have Gian Vellante versus Ed Herman.
Oh my God.
Both of these guys have fought for so long. 38 years, Ed Herman for the 33-year-old Vellante. Vellante has been talked about in one of those chinniest guy positions for many years now. There's been quite a few fights where Gian Vellante's been winning, all of a sudden gets right-handed by Tom Lawler and loses an entire fight, won me a bunch of money, but that's because I was betting against Vellante. And he regularly does that. Not a wrestler. A lot of people say Vellante was a wrestler, but he was not. I believe his best friend is Chris Weidman, but he came in through football only and took to wrestling well. So the wrestling's not going to play any type of matter in here because Gian Vellante doesn't shoot in there at all. He is a kickboxer in there. And Ed Herman does the exact same thing. This is going to be on the cage for either fighter. A lot of clinching in this. And it's whose chin is worse. And I don't know, Ed Herman coming off of a 2-fight losing streak right now to Nikola Krylov, head kick. And then his last fight he lost to, who was this guy? CB Dalloway, unanimous decision. And if you know how we feel about CB here, he's let us down enough times as it is as well. So he's a shell of himself, and he got through.
Is that the guy that jumped out of the airplane over Oregon?
His last fight, it looked like he jumped out of an airplane because he crashed at the end of that fight. He gave up in the second round. So Gian Vellante versus Ed Herman. I don't even know where to go. This is such a stay away anywhere from it. Can't trust either guy's chin. Both of them have okay powerish. Neither of them need power to knock each other out. The better clinch, I want to say is Ed Herman a little bit. But I'm going to go with Gian Vellante decision. I'm just going to stay away. I'm not going to bet this anywhere. And I'm not going to put this on my DraftKings either price anywhere. It's just too scary of a fight. There's other options where you know what the outcome is going to be. This one is such a coin flip of a fight.
Is this a setup fight for Vellante to retire? Is that what they think? I don't
know.
know. I have Herman KO round 3. I don't like either guy anywhere. I look back at these fights and it's so weird that guys at 205 that I can barely remember these. Tim Bosch KO with knee and punches. That seems pretty impressive for Ed Herman.
That's not bad.
The Sam Alvey fight was like 3 punches thrown in the whole fight. It was the most boring thing, like most Sam Alvey fights. Barros the Gross, who you said retire forever.
Yep.
Patrick Cummings, who should have been retired forever. And Hua should have been retired forever. I feel like we've been on this retirement run, and maybe it's just one more fight that both guys should be retiring, but it is a weak division. I'm just going to pick opposite of the crowd because it's gross, scary fight.
It's such a scary fight.
Herman KO round 3.
So, for 9,000, Gian Vellante against 7,300 for Ed Herman. Is that a wager gauger anywhere?
I think maybe.
I think that's actually a better wager gauger, but it might not be because Ed Herman's chin might be so shot that he eats 2 punches and is out of there with 0 points.
I don't think he has a bad chin.
Oh, I think he does.
I think getting head kicked by Krylov was pretty.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad.
Crazy. And Derek Brunson was on his tear back then. when Derek Brunson knocked him out. He went to decision with the guy who jumped out of the plane over Oregon. I'm not sticking up for that fight. I'm going to stay away from it if I can.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from it if I can. But with some of these inflated lines, you're going to need an Ed Herman in there.
Yeah.
You're gonna. So
Volante nowhere, though.
No Volante for 9,000. I'm sorry. That's a little too sleek for that type of a chin. Then we go to the 135-pounders. Bantamweight, we have Andre Sukhamthath versus debuting Jonathan Martinez. Martinez coming out of Texas. He's 9-1, debuting at 135. So Hamthath has had 3-4 fights in the UFC now. He's only won one of those fights, come in 1-3 in the UFC, losing to Alberto Morales, Alejandro Perez, which he knocked down twice in a fight. That was actually probably one of the worst steals of the year. And then last, losing a decision to Sean O'Malley, where Sukhamthath would have won the fight.
Dumbest ring IQ. You were talking about
ever seen this
during the fight.
Ever. And even Sean O'Malley since came out and said, yeah, if Sukhamthath would have gotten off my back and stood up, the ref would have probably called the fight because I couldn't stand on my feet. And Sukhamthath maybe got hit too many times, was a little bit rung in the bell, but when I see that level of low fight IQ, it makes me take a really big step back. And I liked Sukhamthath. He's a Muay Thai striker with okay takedown defense. But he really, when he starts to wear down a little bit in there, his mind out the door. You know me, I love me some Laotians. Laos in the house. I grew up breakdancing with a bunch of Laos. They good people. Good, fun fighter. I like Sukhamthath. I didn't get to see as much as I wanted on Martinez, but he likes to get this to the ground and really submit you, go take you to the grinder, armbar you if you can. His striking isn't that bad, but I do think Sukhamthath has a steady edge there. The thing that scares me, though, is Sukhamthath could knock Martinez down and then jump on him thinking, oh, perfect. And then Martinez rolls up an ankle, a knee, or an armbar and finish this via submission. Because Sukhamthath's submission defense, it hasn't faltered yet, but it hasn't looked great in the time that I've seen him on top. It just looks like he could be lacking a little bit there. He's at the Combat Club here out of Florida, Sukhamthath. He's training with a bunch of beasts. I'm going to end up going with the Asian sensation. He's bit me. I mean, I feel like I've picked almost every time on him, and he's bit me in the ass, and maybe you stay away from me, fans, on this one. I'm going to go with Sukhamthath. That might be the curse on him, because I feel like I'm really low pickings with him, but I think he gets it done in a decision. This is going to be another stay away. I'm not gonna try to pick this. That fight IQ is too low.
This whole fight card for me might be a stay away in general.
Yeah, not a bad point.
I have only gone with Sukhamthath one time, and I lost on the one time I went with him. So I don't do great with Sukhamthath. I've gone with Sean O'Malley and Alejandro Perez. I thought they were awesome fights. Luke Saunders, I actually thought that Sukhamthath would win that fight. So way to go, Sukhamthath. Shit. I had Sukhamthath.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I had him decision, but looking at how I voted with him, I almost want to pick Jonathan Martinez to win, because that seems to pay off for me up until this point. And I want to pick a submission just because it seems like easy pickings submission.
This guy's got crafty submissions on the ground. He really does. I don't want to say Eddie Bravo-ish, but jiu-jitsu in itself is evolving, and these 24-year-olds are coming in. And again, at 30 years old, Sukhamthath probably not gonna. We're seeing what we get from him.
I know. Is this a setup fight? They don't do Sukhamthath any favors
at all. He's fought beasts in there for sure.
I'm going with Martinez. I think he's gonna submit him in round. Oh shit. Poor Sukhamthath.
I can't blame you for any of that.
I know.
Can't blame you for any of that.
I'm gonna pick submission round 3. I think he figures it out.
8,600 for Sukhamthath.
Damn, he took a lot of damage in there.
Yeah. Jonathan Martinez, 7,600. I'm not going to play heavy this fight at all. I'm going to also, on my DraftKings, stay away from this fight. I'm going to have like 5 fights to pick from. That's going to be it pretty much for this night. Or just be contrarian in order to help out my card a little bit.
This is going to be a good fight. I could see myself changing this before fight time to Sukhamthath. I could go either way on this.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't feel good enough about it to give you
a solid pick. How
Yeah.
much you're going to say on him. Then we go to the 205ers. Misha Shirkinov against Patrick Cummings. Both of these fighters have a few fights in the UFC. Pat Cummings being 10-5, former title contender, against 13-4. Misha Shirkinov coming off of his first 2-fight losing streak ever. Misha Shirkinov came in with all sorts of hype, bodied up beast, coming out of Extreme Couture Toronto, jiu-jitsu ace, but from what we've seen, Glover Teixeira and no time Oezdemir got him out of there quickly, and that's because Misha Shirkinov has always been speculated to have a glass chin, and it's been proven 2 times in a row. It was in the clinch. They didn't look like the hardest punches, but they were hard enough to get Shirkinov out of there where he didn't know where he was. Pat Cummings, luckily for Shirkinov, doesn't have that type of power, but this is one of those situations where people are going to say, Pat Cummings is a knockout fighter, and it's like, no, he fought Shirkinov. He is not a knockout puncher. And the same can go for Shirkinov and Pat Cummings. Pat Cummings doesn't wear a punch well. He cuts the shit. Every time he gets punched, he looks like a beat-up Popeye after every fight. Corey Anderson just ran through him in his last fight, 10-8'd him in a multiple rounds in there. The 37-year-old Cummings has that wrestling grinding style, doesn't benefit him here because you don't want to go to the ground with Shirkinov at all. And striking-wise, I do give Pat Cummings the bit of an advantage, but he kind of throws a 1-2, ducks his head for the takedown eventually, and his game's really based on those takedowns, and that's not somewhere you want to go with Shirkinov.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is a
big
tough
fan
fight.
in Canada?
Who, Shirkinov?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people in Canada had him being a title contender immediately, and as soon as he came in the UFC, he did get a win over
Submission.
Krylov via submission, and Kutalaba via submission, Alex Nichols. Yep. He popped Nichols' jaw out of its socket. Remember that pop? But we don't have to worry about that power necessarily against Cummings. I got Shirkinov submission round number 2 just because I think Pat Cummings plays his game plan, plays into Shirkinov's game plan. I might have to stay away from this because both of those chins. We've had a chinny night the last few fights.
I agree, but I think Oezdemir is somebody to watch out for.
Totally.
I think he has crazy killer power. And I think that Glover has proven that he just knocks people out.
Yep.
So maybe Shirkinov isn't as chinny as Pat Cummings. But then when you look back at the guys that Pat Cummings was getting knocked out by, Glover Teixeira again, and also Nogueira, who was knocking out,
Totally.
Big Nog,
Yep.
getting hit. So I got Shirkinov submission. I think he figures it out. If either guy gets, I don't know, is both guy washed, or is this just that, once again, that division where that power tips over, and if you get hit at that weight, anyone can get knocked out.
Yeah, at 205ers, I mean, they're right there. They all hit hard.
The ground game, if Shirkinov is that much better, I think he figures out how to submit Cummings. I think he'll slowly wear through him, and I think he'll figure out, I had round 3, but I'm going to move it up to round 2. Shirkinov submission round 2.
That is a perfect 4-LaTB. We're on the same page for that one. 9,300 for Shirkinov against Pat Cummings, 6,900. It's a little steep, though. We both see a submission coming. We both see a finish.
I agree. That's not going to be my expensive fighter. It's going to be Shirkinov.
Yeah, Shirkinov is not going to be the guy that it's my
because
linchpin.
Pat Cummings could totally knock him out.
100%. 100%. So I am going to play. I'm probably in that 50% range on Shirkinov. Not going to be 100% of my cards. I might dabble a little bit of Pat Cummings.
Does not have nearly as good a hands as Teixeira or
Totally.
Oezdemir.
I might dabble, though, a little bit in Cummings. He might be my contrarian on a couple cards just to save a little bit of
I
cash.
think I can have Cummings anywhere. I have some other cheaper fighters.
True. Then we go to the people's main event. The greatest of all time is blessing us with his presence. We thought that he was going to be off of this card. Luckily, there was one man brave enough to step in there with him. Michael Johnson might be the 15th man to be able to do it, but I don't think he stands a chance. Artem Lobov is the people's champ.
It's amazing.
Greatest of all time. And if people don't get why Artem Lobov is the greatest of all time, because a lot of people haven't been able to stay in there with Conor McGregor, Artem Lobov has. for a long time. So, by proxy, Artem Lobov is the best. Eddie Alvarez couldn't stay in there with Conor McGregor. Artem Lobov has been there for 10 years, taking those punches.
I thought it was any guy that could have this many losses and still keep on going. That's what made him the greatest of all time. He has the most amount of losses in the UFC, right?
He is a 500 fighter, which in our sport,
pretty close.
Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson.
Yeah, but look at the level of competition. Michael Johnson has had almost 20 fights in the UFC compared to Lobov's is 3 or 6.
Lobov's competition ain't playing. Look at his last 3 fights. Those are all.
At Cub Swanson, I had the GOAT in that one. Andre Fili had Andre Fili in that decision. But the GOAT will come out. You know what he'll do. 14-14-1. Artem Lobov comes in, mainly a striker. Okay, take down the fence. He's got a wicked right hand. Puts most people down as soon as it touches them. Comes in with a standing hammer fist. Seen rarely in the UFC. Discombobulating his opponents. Putting them in all sorts of supers. But if we've seen anything, Michael Johnson trains with Michael Chandler. American Top Team, Black Zillions, Combat Club. He's been in there with the best of them. Isn't a D1 wrestler, or has wrestling credentials, but I don't think is D1 level. Goes with a lot of D1 guys in the practice room. Great striker, tons of power in that right hand. It's a laser beam once he gets it going. And the real way to get Michael Johnson off of his game plan is you got to use a lot of pressure with power and keep him off of that. And the GOAT isn't really going to do that. He puts together 3 and 4 punch combinations, but those T-Rex arms really limit the amount of movement he has at times, and he does tend to slow down a little bit in there.
He does have tiny little arms.
He's got goat arms.
And I've seen so many memes about his arms that now when I see pictures of him with his real arms, I think it's
It's
meme.
Photoshop. Yeah, I'm like, is that a Photoshop? And people are like, it is not a Photoshop. This dude's got tiny arms against Michael Johnson, 74-inch reach. He's going to have 9-inch reach advantage against Lobov, liking the ankles for Michael Johnson. The biggest prediction here, do you think you're going to see Conor McGregor in the stands with that proper 12?
Oh gosh, I'm over that whiskey already. I've seen that whiskey more places than I've seen Kim Kardashian.
Dang.
That whiskey is everywhere.
It is everywhere.
Well,
everywhere.
It's just him. He's everywhere. Is Conor gonna be there? I don't think he was at his last fight. Was he? I don't think he was for the Andre Fili fight.
He might have not been, but because it was not allowed because of the
Did
dolly.
Andre Fili start yelling at him?
Yeah. Connor?
Yeah.
Maybe. Was he not allowed because of the dolly, though? It was right around the dolly time. No, because Lobov got pulled off. Lobov almost got pulled off of this card because Tumegov, who jumped in the cage, was his opponent who just sucker punched Connor. So we are lucky again. We get to see this magnificent man bless us with another fight in there. But I'm going to have...
Did Andre Fili lose his temper and start yelling?
He started
at
yakking at someone. I don't know if it was him or Dylan Dennis, though.
Yeah, I don't remember now if Conor was there or not.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know. Yeah,
I agree with that.
I have Johnson decision. I think anyone that thinks that Artem Lobov is going to get knocked out in there is crazy. The guy is a human punching bag. I don't know if you've watched any of his fights, but he's been in there with the hardest hitters. He is a human punching bag for Conor. I think he's smart for them to go in with, and I almost think he gives Conor maybe even a sense of false... because if you only have
I agree with that.
65-inch reach advantage, and you can just
a false confidence
move around all this guy's thing. Poor Artem. I think Michael Johnson's going to go in there and decision victory him.
I'm going to have Michael
3 rounds.
I'm going to have Michael Johnson finish this in the 3rd round. I do think Michael Johnson can keep enough pressure on it to be able to get him out of there. Though for how much is this guy on?
Has Artem Lobov been finished in the UFC?
I don't think he has. I think it's all been decisions. I think you're spot on with the human punching bag. That has been pretty much his career. He loses via decision, but I think Michael Johnson hits harder than Cub Swanson or Andre Fili. Michael Johnson hits with some heat. For 9,500 for Michael Johnson against 6,700 for Lobov. Is Artem Lobov a wage gager for Lesbo there if you don't see a finish?
How much is he in?
6,700.
Yep. I'm going to put my little goat on
the
there.
little Lobov?
Getting finished. And
Wow.
I think he's going to land.
I don't think that's a bad call at all. Because I see Johnson more in the third round getting this finish. So that means that gives Lobov 2 rounds to be able to land a good amount of strikes and still give you hopefully 30 points in a loss. 40 points? 30 points?
And the best would be if Dylan Dennis has been hanging out with Artem Lobov and he submitted Michael Johnson, because we know that's a possibility too.
Wow. You think Artem Lobov's going to
I have a Michael Johnson decision, but I think Artem Lobov isn't going to get finished at all. Like, I think it's a safe bet.
Wow. I love it. That's why you're here. Listening to LaTB, getting all sorts of great point of views. That's going to be
Ishihara.
That's a good point. He did. So, how much are you going to put? How much are you going to put for 6,700? How often are you going to have Lobov in your DK cards?
If I have to have him, just everything's so expensive. All the fighters that I want to play are all over 9.
I agree.
So
I think you might be right on the wager. So, because I've picked Lobov on quite a few times, it might be not the Leslie Smith underdog pick, but he'll definitely he has wage gauge of potential heavily in there. We finally made it to the main event. 12 cards down, 1 more to go. We have one former contender in there against Anthony Smith. Lionheart himself is 30-13-0 against Volkan Oezdemir, who's 15-2, only 2 losses. One against Daniel Cormier, and then prior to that, long in his career, the Swedish fighter's 29 against 30-year-old Smith. Both of these guys, I think Anthony Smith with a 30-13 record, a lot of people are also saying he's in the teens with his losses. But look at the caliber of fighter and then the run he's been on. Anthony Smith does have a loss to Thiago Santos, short notice, but has come off a 2-fight winning streak. Though Evil Twin did weigh in on this fight specifically, saying that look at the people that Anthony Smith's beaten as of late, and it is more those legend category fighters in Shogun Rua and Rashad Evans. Those are guys that are definitely on the way out. Hector Lombard easily in that boat. And Andrew Sanchez, that doesn't count, but Andrew Sanchez has been a major failure in there.
Maheta.
But that's a loss to an actual quality guy.
185er.
True, but they fought a 2. Was that a short notice that they fought a 205?
I don't know. I was just pointing it out that
was 8
he's
months
just
ago.
a smaller man. A smaller man.
Well, Anthony Smith hits with a ton of power. Good Muay Thai, good plum clinch. Tends to be more of the brawler in the fight out of the 2 fighters. Volkan Oezdemir is one of these guys who has had a long reputation in the sport because he was the only training partner for Rumble Johnson for a long, long time. And Anthony Johnson's like, I got a guys. Like, this guy hits hard and he can take a punch. And that was always Oezdemir, no time himself. And he does. He has a good chin. His only loss in the UFC is to Daniel Cormier, the champ. One of the greatest fighters of all time.
Champ. DC.
And he put in a good showing against DC. He ended up being ground and pound, TKO'd in that fight. But he put in a valiant showing. I think it only steps up as to now Oezdemir knows what he needs to do to be a champion in there. So the bigger growth out of any of these fights, I would say Oezdemir is going to have out of Anthony Smith. What does Anthony Smith win from knocking out Rua and Rashad Evans in a minute?
You're right.
It boosts him. It boosts him, and that's about it. As I was saying, Anthony Smith tends to be more the brawler, where Oezdemir tends to be more technical. He has great uppercuts with a good straight right down the pipe, good chin, and in the clinch, Ozdemir's number one sneaky punch has been that uppercut. That's how he got Shirkinov out of there, but he's hurt a lot of other fighters, putting them back up to the clinch and then beating them with that dirty clinch that Randy Couture I'm not just going to pummel you to the cage, I'm going to make it hurt the whole way there. I got Oezdemir getting Anthony Smith out of here in the 3rd round, maybe the 4th. I don't see this going all 5 rounds. This is a fight of the night contender because Anthony Smith, even though he's a brawler in there, he makes it for a fun fight. On the ground, both of these guys are really good. Anthony Smith has a couple submissions in there, some Kimuras. He's got good hits in there on the ground as well. Oezdemir, we haven't seen enough on the ground, so I would give the check mark to Smith there, but I don't think it gets there. I think that Smith shows us what he does on the ground. Usually when it's a flurry that gets him to the ground, he doesn't really shoot there. I got Oezdemir TKO round number 3. This is a fun one. This is a good main event. People shouldn't be shitting on this one. It's going to be a firefight. Who do you have in this bout?
No, I think this is an exciting fight. I do agree with you. It's going to be a firefight, but Oezdemir's just better everywhere. Anthony Smith is a guy that right now he's running high on knocking out grandfathers, and now he's about to run in there against somebody who's going to be in the prime of his career, who just went against the best of the best. And Anthony Smith doesn't have anything on Daniel Cormier, so he doesn't have a chance of taking a victory from him. I felt like Oezdemir put in a good showing against Daniel as well. Jimmy Manoa, I always talk shit about his chin, but he has good hands. And, you know, Anthony Smith has good hands too. I like his trajectory as well. I just like Volkan. Maybe it's totally biased, but I think he totally figures it out. And I think the camp difference is devastatingly different. Coming from the camp or Oezdemir right now, I just think he's getting next level training than Anthony Smith. And Anthony Smith is under this impression that he's not doing anything wrong because he's knocking out people and
Rashad Evans and Shogun Rua.
Yeah. People that shouldn't have been fighting a few fights ago already.
Totally.
So I got Oezdemir KO round 3, maybe even round 2.
Ooh, I like that. Almost.
Anthony Smith, he can knock anyone out of the planet the same as any fight. Puncher's chance, blah, 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 blah. But I like Oezdemir. He has a good chin, and if you even remember, he didn't get knocked out by DC.
No. It was pretty much
brutal to watch anymore.
It was a grind. It was exactly. It wasn't a quit in there, which I also really liked. Good point by Oezdemir. He didn't give up in there at any point in time, and in none of his fights has Oezdemir ever shown that. I can't say that much for Anthony Smith, but the person that I've seen almost throwing up in there because they're so tired has been Anthony Smith.
Oh yeah.
So for 8,400, Oezdemir is the minus 175 favorite against the slight underdog, plus 145, 7,800 for Anthony Smith. I'm going to say if I was looking for a linchpin, somebody that I'm going to play on 80% of my cards or more, I got Oezdemir in there. I think for the 5 rounds, if it goes 5 rounds, he gets the points. If he gets a finish before then, hopefully he's accumulated enough punches to even it out.
I'm almost bummed that everybody is seeing what I'm seeing on it. I thought it'd be closer.
Closer than that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it might get a little bit further, if anything. I think more people are sighting on the Oezdemir train as well. So, over the whole night, who is Artem Lobov going to be our wager gauger of the night? Is that who it officially comes down to with a loss?
I think there was a couple of them going.
There was a couple of them.
And there was a couple of them we agreed on the round and the finish and the person.
Right. So, a couple of those other ones was also, I believe, second round for Garcia. We also had
Garcia.
Okay. Hapkaras, round number 1.
Maybe.
Did we both agree on that one? I feel like that one might be on. And Moras, submission round number 2. I think we were both right on that one.
Maybe. I don't know. You just listen to it.
So you know who I got for the wage gauge. Go, baby. The go. I'm going to be a linchpin and also Oezdemir tying that down.
Am I wrong, or is next weekend, is it already time for 231, the card that just keeps on... It's like New York cards are cursed.
I feel like that... That's 100% true. And so is the NFL sports game curse that's also turned over into the game curse. Anybody who's ever been on the EA cover loses that year. And it's 100% right for us. Rhonda?
Mm-hmm. Check.
Connor?
Check.
DJ?
Check. And?
John Jones!
No, Connor again. That video game that just came out?
Another one? Was Connor again?
The Notorious Edition.
So let Habib get on there, see who I have to pick against. Don't put Tony on there, baby. Get on that EA Sports. But as far as for next week, it is going to be UFC 230, Daniel Cormier versus Derek Lewis. It's going to be a fun one.
New York cards are cursed. I hope everyone's professional there. Everybody's just collecting checks. That's just called collecting checks. But are we going to break it up into prelims and then the main card?
Yeah, that's a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So Sunday we're going to come down with a heavy-duty preliminary breakdown.
Yeah.
Then the main card later on in the week.
That's a good idea.
I love it.
Are you excited about... Yo, you're excited to lose, DJ. I'm excited about Ben Askren.
I'm excited for Askren. I'm not so excited for DJ, but guess what? I'm going to watch those fights anyways. I'm going to watch
Thanks for Askren. Thanks for listening.
Let's go the beat.
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.